Okay, make yourselves a good, strong, hot cup of tea, draw yourself up close to the steam-powered wireless, and let's transport ourselves back to the heady days of the Second World War. For some clarity, that actually started in 1939 for most of us. Take it away, Tom.
Here is an illustrated summary of the news. It'll be followed by the latest film of events and happenings at home and abroad.
Welcome to the latest newsreel of current events during these dark days. The war news continues to be mixed, with German bombers continuing to pound London by night and constant battles for air supremacy between the RAF and the Luftwaffe by day. Aircraft production is down due to heavy damage from several factories. The Air Ministry continues to remain tight-lipped about the number of pilots it's been able to train for frontline service. On the home front, civilians continue to keep up morale by digging victory gardens, constructing Anderson shelters, and obeying the instructions of ARP wardens when raids occur. The Prime Minister, Mr. Churchill, has called for increased effort by all citizens if victory is eventually to be obtained, saying that eventually the new world, with all its might, will eventually come to the aid of the old. Meanwhile, in Washington, though, the treatment accorded to Mr. Churchill during his recent visit to the United States has observers deeply worried, insisting that Mr. Churchill's belligerent rhetoric about total victory were an impediment to diplomatic negotiations. Mr. Roosevelt treated Mr. Churchill rather badly. The Prime Minister's meeting with Mr. Roosevelt was private, and photographers and newsreel cameramen were not allowed to film it. The United States government has been notably cool towards Great Britain since the commencement of Bomber Command's air offensive against German industrial targets, calling the raids disproportionate and unhelpful. Mr. Roosevelt went so far as to say that British aggression against Germany is simply forcing the German people to dig in and increases support for the Nazi Party. He stated that as Britain is a democracy, it should be expected to behave rather better than its adversaries. As to his own European diplomatic initiative, he controversially met Herr von Ribbentrop for talks in Geneva. Mr. Roosevelt summed up his meetings with the Nazi foreign minister as being highly productive and suggested that they helped to lower the belligerent tone emanating from certain other nations, which Her Majesty's government took privately to mean Britain. After their joint press conference, Mr. Roosevelt was observed to bow deeply as he shook Herr von Ribbentrop's hand. Informed sources in Washington have hailed President Roosevelt's policy of independent diplomatic triangulation, describing it as a masterpiece of balancing the need to maintain an alliance with Britain with the need to stay out of the war and provide the United States with the required leverage with both sides to eventually be able to act as an honest broker when it comes time to end the war through negotiations. One White House official, who did not wish to be named, said, "Talk is the only way this horrible conflict can possibly end. My God, man, what do you want us to do? Invade Europe or something? The idea is simply preposterous, and it's time the British were compelled to see reason." Admiral King has gone on record as saying that Britain's aggressive policies are placing the lives of US servicemen in danger, no doubt referring to the anti-U-boat patrols being undertaken by the US Navy in the Atlantic. Perhaps his remarks were aimed at underlining American unhappiness at the recent sinking of the destroyer Reuben James by a German submarine off Iceland, with many in Washington insisting it would never have happened if Mr. Churchill had been more reasonable and had made some concessions to the Nazis. Meanwhile, in the United States city of Chicago, the newly appointed Secretary of War, Charles Lindbergh, has presided over a ceremony marking the decommissioning of the 7th armaments factory in the current round of defense plant closures. Hailing it as a victory for common sense, the famed Atlantic solo flyer stated that if America disarms, it'll show the world that the country has only peaceable intentions. In his address to the crowd, Mr. Lindbergh went on to say that if America can't attack anyone else, then it's logical to assume that no one will want to attack America. He went on to receive a hero's welcome at a mass rally of the German-American Bund later that night, which filled Wrigley Field. The torchlight rally passed a motion demanding that the FBI take special measures to monitor what they described as sinister manipulative forces within the United States, whose aims include sending American boys to fight and die for Jewish global domination. The government has so far not responded to the demand, but officials are said to be studying it carefully, as the German-American vote is said to be particularly strong in electorally significant parts of the upper Midwest. If you'll excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we may have to cut this broadcast short. I think I can hear, yes, it's one of the German pilotless drones, the infamous doodlebugs, coming rather near our makeshift studio here on the roof of the Air Ministry in London. If you listen carefully, you should be able to hear it. Oh dear, that's the engine cutting out now. We really don't have time to evacuate, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid. Listen for it. Can't be long now. Oh, Right, well, the V1 appears to have struck some distance away. It looks like it might be Mayfair this time. Poor devils. Well, until next time, this is British Pathé Movietone News signing off from London. I'm sure our leaders know exactly what they're doing, and we'll all just muddle through in the end. Cheerio!